Hello guys, welcome back to another Spin Boot episode. Today I'm gonna teach you about filters in Java. Okay, let's get things started. It is to do a validation part or filtering part of the client request without directly letting them go that we use filters. Requests and responses are getting validated by filters when we use them. That if you think like this, if there's a client, the client goes to filter one and two filters or more than two filters or one filter to provide the request for the servlet or the web container, and the next thing what the web container and servlet does is send the response to the filters, one or two or one or more, and the client gets the request from the servlet after being filtered by the filters. Okay, now let's see how to make a filter in Java. In the controllers, no, in the controllers, we'll make a new filter class. Let's call this class F1, and inside the class what we'll do is we'll implement filter. We have to select the Java X server filter other than other ones, and after doing that we get the red bulb icon, and we have to override our methods by implementing them. So let's press on implement methods, and there are three methods to implement. We'll have them all. What this does is, first it creates the init method, then the do filter method and the destroy method. The init method has filter config that throws servlet exception, and after that the filter super is called, and then we have do filter, which I'll tell you about in later on this video. It has a server request, servlet response, and one thing called filter chain. It throws IO exception, servlet exceptions likewise. And finally there's the destroy method. It is used to provide a code after the app gets destroyed. Okay, so let's see how this works. First thing, we'll have a out in the init method. We'll call this init. Inside the do filter also we'll have an out that says do filter, and in the destroy method we'll have a out called destroyed, like this. Let's save this, and I'll tell you now how to map a filter to a URL pattern. So here in the web we must go to the Web Xml, and here first thing we'll make a filter. The name of the filter will be our F1, and the next thing we'll have the filter class which will be F1, and the next thing is we'll have a filter mapping. Filter name will be F1, and we'll provide the URL pattern. We'll say / for 8080 port access. Okay, let's save this, and the next thing, let's run this and check the output. The console will print the method signatures inside our application. It will print init, do filter and destroyed in certain instances. Alright, now let's run our JSP and see what happens. let's go to the local host 8080. And once we do that, we get our oh right, I forgot something. In the F1 class we have to provide a component attribute so that this thing works. So let's run this again. And we get init like this. So we got init. That means when the app initializes, we get init, and that's how this works. And now let's press it on again, and then we get do filter likewise. So we got init and do filter when the app got initialized when the app got changed. Now let's see destroy. When we close the application, we get destroyed like this. So that's the life cycle of a filter. Filter URL pattern and JSP or servlet URL pattern must be the same to make a filter between a servlet or JSP. Let's see what the chain.do filter request response does. It says to proceed to the respective servlet or JSP, and we can make a filter chain. Filters are put to the filter chain according to the URL pattern. The JSP or servlet in the URL pattern is the last access servlet or JSP in the filter chain. When client sends a request, web container makes a filter chain. The first request sent by the client is to the filter, and once it got request, response objects and filter chains are made and called do filter. Now let's see how to map a servlet to a web filter. We'll make a new servlet. We'll go to class, and here we'll call this fserve, and we'll extend it with HTTP servlet. And next thing, we'll have a controller annotation placed for it. No, here we'll say web servlet, and we'll provide the URL pattern as slash, and we'll have a do get. Okay, and here in the do get we say s out. No, we'll make this blank. And now let's map the filter in the web.xml file. Here instead of URL pattern, we say servlet name like this, and we'll give the servlet name as fserve like this. And now let's run this again. We get init, and let's refresh the browser. and then we got do filter, and let's close this, and we got destroyed. Likewise, actually we don't need the servlet name again. We'll say URL pattern, and here we'll provide the slash for the 8080 port access to the default access of the URL pattern. You save this. Okay, now let's see how the do filter works. Let's have this code inside our do filter and see what happens. Here instead of after do filter we'll use the response dot get writer to write an h1 with the value 1, and we'll call chain dot do filter to get the request response. Then again we'll say response dot get writer and write a 2 in the h1, and finally we'll have the chain dot do filter response. Let's run this and check what happens in the browser. Let's refresh the page. We get do filter called, but we didn't get the h1 tag. Why is this? Okay, now the next thing, we'll learn how to annotate the filter. To annotate the filter, we'll now make another filter. We'll call this anno filter, and we'll implement filter, the servlet filter, Java X servlet filter, and we'll override the methods, implement the methods do filter init and destroy, and inside this we'll give a web filter annotation. We'll copy this pattern and paste it here, and we'll call this filter anno filter, and the URL pattern will be this. And now let's out some values. We'll say init, and we'll out do filter. Finally we'll out destroyed. Okay, now the next thing, we'll remove alright, now let's remove these filters from the Web Xml and save this, and let's run this again. We see the annotated web filter in action. We got init, and let's refresh the browser, and we get do filter, and when we close this we get destroyed, like that. Okay, now it's in the filter mapping order that the filters are mapped in Web Xml. How to view request count using filters? we'll have a simple app that finds the request count in the filters. We remove these SOUs from this filter, and we'll first have private int hit count inside the filter, and then in do filter we'll iterate the hit count, and then we'll say request.set attribute and provide the hit count as we'll give this a key called counter and close this, and I'll have this like that, and we say chain dot do filter request response, and inside the destroy we'll say hit count equals to 0. Okay, let's save this, and we'll have this in the JSP. This code placed here. We'll say views, and we'll say count equals scriptlet tag expression tag and request does get attribute, and we'll get the key counter to access the counter value. Now let's see our view find the application in progress. When we refresh the browser, no, this is happening because we remove this annotation and save this, and we'll go to Web XML, and here we say Annotate filter, and here we say Annotate filter, and here also we say Annotate filter, and the URL pattern will be this. Now let's run this and check the output. What's happening here? Now let's have add component given to the filter so that the component will be auto configured. This filter will be auto configured, and now let's run our index.jsp. Let's go to the browser, and here we'll type localhost 8080, and whoa, we got views count equals to 1. And let's refresh this, 2, 3, 4, 5, and our view count gets increased at a rapid level when we press it and press it and press it. Okay, so this is what I wanted to show you in this video, and I've succeeded in it, and the lesson isn't still over. There'll be another filter lesson, and I'll come up with another filter lesson another time. Until then, bye guys.